Welcome, Black.
Welcome, Black. You are listening to the Seeds of Revolution, Daughters of the Whirlwind podcast,
where we discuss legacy, history, resistance, and forward movement.
The revolution is live. Hey.
What's going on?
Greetings.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Hey. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Ladies.
I am Dr. Asantewa Sunni-Ali.
I am Aiyisha T, Obafemi.
And I am Princess Mdaiyah Yisrael.
All right. And so this episode, we are talking about time.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
time and holidays, holy
celebrations,
days,
family traditions,
seasons, and how seasons change, and family traditions, and how we make this particular time of year our own.
Yes.
And the importance of that, and not just
creating our own traditions, the traditions that we've had as a family for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And now that we're passing it on to our children.
Yes. Intertwining into the generational traditions.
So as you can tell from the title of the episode, we call it Family Dinner.
Yes. Family dinner.
Yeah, there's so many stories that we can tell just around how we arrived at that.
Yeah.
Because it was a thing.
It was
a thing.
Especially when we first started.
Yeah.
Right.
It was.
And we all had different names for it. Mm-hmm. And I know that even you all as listeners have heard different names. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about Thanksgiving, you know, in particular, which is happening this week, which is on the Gregorian calendar. We're going to be talking about that in a few.
Yes.
But I always remember growing up, Mommy calling it Thanks-taking.
Yes.
Or Misgiving.
Misgiving.
Those were the two names that I recall, like, growing up. Yeah. And just right off the bat, it put me in a state of mind where I recognized that, this isn't ours necessarily, and that we're renaming and reclaiming
our way,
right? Renaming and reclaiming, and just having some consciousness about the fact that whatever it is that they're presenting to us, you know, in the history books, in the nursery rhymes,
you
know,
books,
is
school
something,
lessons,
cartoons,
all of that is
we
something to challenge and something to really look into deeper, and not just take it as it is presented.
Because that's what they want you to do. They feed you and they want you to eat it, but you don't have to eat it.
What a metaphor.
Go ahead.
Come on now.
That's my sister, Princess Mdaiyah.
Because that's what it
in
is.
This thing.
They feeding you physically and mentally. And metaphysically. Come on through with the layers.
So we have always been reclaiming our time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Reclaiming our time.
Yes.
Reclaiming our time.
Yes.
Yes.
And utilizing our time in ways that we feel is most appropriate.
Yes.
Right. Along with what the Gregorian calendar says, you know,
we're supposed to do.
Right.
Time.
I was telling a sister the other day that we have to kind of learn, you know, we've been taught all the time, digest. But we have to learn to undigest a lot of the things that we have digested along the way, whether it be from school, social media, whatever it is, because we don't have to accept it. We don't have to carry it.
We don't have to eat it.
You know?
But it's constantly pushed on you.
Yes.
We can leave it right there on the plate and say, no, I'm not going to eat that.
Exactly.
Right.
But like I think we were saying earlier, self-consciously, we absorb it. And we don't even realize it until we wake up and be like, wait, why was those thoughts so prevalent in my mind? Because it's so prevalent in the atmosphere.
Yes.
And we've absorbed so much of it. So we have to intentionally practice to disengage, to undigest, and to regurgitate that stuff outwardly, like from outside of us. And because, you know, truth be told, when we don't do that, even if we're not trying to teach our children, we're teaching our children those same methods, those same
because
they're watching us.
They're internal.
So you know it's internalized. So we have to purposely do that. And I like the fact that we begin this conversation with how we did it, because, like we said, it was a struggle in the family in the beginning.
We had several family
meetings and family members who did not agree because we all didn't grow up the same either. You know, our household was very revolutionary. So everything we did was revolutionary.
Yeah, and then you have
some
that
of our family.
Yep, and you have family.
Not.
Yeah, right. So
so we had a battle. I mean, even down to whether it was going to be ham at the table. Remember that?
Yes.
Like, I remember those.
Was it ham? No, it was never going to be ham.
No, it was
somebody wanted it
because grandma,
auntie. Oh, I didn't even recall that one.
Auntie was fighting for it because grandma.
But who was going to be eating the ham?
Grandma.
Just one person?
Right.
Well, grandma and auntie probably.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, she wanted the representation of it there because that's what they were accustomed to.
Right.
And we had to fight it.
Yep.
And it wasn't a physical fight, but we had to fight the principle of, first of all, we're not doing nothing traditional at our dinners. And we didn't have it on Thursdays, remember?
Right. We would do it on Fridays. Yeah.
We literally was like, if we do it on this day, that means we are acknowledging this day for them and saying, okay, well, this is the day y'all gave us, we gonna accept it. You know, and you know, we'll get into that a little bit, but I have my battles. But we came to that agreement of Fridays, and we would cook certain things that everybody would like.
Yeah,
because
I also remember,
but we stopped making turkey.
That's what I was going to say. That was on the table. Is that we won't
didn't have no ham on our table.
Oh, definitely not. No pork.
First of all,
on
our fork. Because first of all, we were in a Muslim household. Daddy was definitely not about to have that.
That's why that totally like I forgot that whole.
I remember that. I remember all those long meetings because and it was great that we had them.
Yeah.
Because it was so
if we went to auntie's or went to anybody else's house, they had it.
So we had to have the understanding of why. You know, because mommy never told us what we did was right or wrong. She told us this is our practice. So we went to other people's house. We acknowledged what they did, but we knew when to step away from that table and when to step back in. You know, and I think that's something that I'm grateful that mommy taught us too.
Yeah.
To be able to step into a circle that you agree into something, and then when you don't agree, you can step away and not be disrespectful.
Right.
Exactly.
There's still love there. But the brilliance of it is that fast forward to years later, Auntie Laverne, the aunt we were talking about, Auntie Lovey, would come to Atlanta. She would be here for like 2.5 weeks. She'd be here before and after. And she'd cook. The children would cook with her. She'd teach her recipes, you know, and different things like that. And, you know, so not having her here, we always now have her because this year marks 8 years. As of October 31st, since she transitioned. And so right after she passed, that first dinner, we called it Lovey's Dinner. In her honor, because it had become something that was just so, you know, it meant so much to her for us to do it and for us to be together and cook the things. And she would even eat vegan. Like, it was like, you got her to exchange. It was definitely an exchange.
Because even though she did bring the traditional stuff, she understood that we're not traditional. She was open. And we're going to break this cycle of traditional stuff.
It became more about, it was always about family, but it really
came about
inherently became more about the family and specifically the younger generation, especially for her to engage with her great nieces and nephews and, you know, that she was able to just be there, and we still have that family love and the traditions.
They would just go in the kitchen and be like, "What you want? What you need, Auntie?" And she had a job for each and every one of them, and that's what I loved, like the job she had for them, even the little ones. Oh, you know, and,
I remember Zeke
pinching the bread,
kale too.
Kale,
making kale salad,
and
which
was like 6 then,
right? Which was another way that you know Auntie was open, you know, to new things. And now you eating raw greens.
Like she was like, wait a minute, you know, and then even starting to cook without the turkey and the greens. And she just really
and realizing that she didn't have to make a separate pot for herself or any of that,
because
but like
it was still good without the things that she thought she needed.
Okay, I can use a vegan butter, or I can use, you know, coconut oil or whatever.
And then the aspect of teaching her the health benefits of it. Because it wasn't just about not eating it. Also, everything we did was about education. Mommy educated us on everything.
And intention.
You know? And the intention of it. So even when we didn't have certain things, the foods that we had were supposed to be invigorating to our spirits.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't to clog us down. Yeah. You know how they say you got the itis?
Yeah.
We barely had the itis. We were so energized. We were playing games till midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, because we had so much energy from the food that was given to us, because it was revitalizing our cells, you know, and our brains and different things.
Right.
And so I really, when I think about it, even though I'll put it out there, I don't really do family dinner, y'all, like that anymore, because it's just my own personal beliefs. But, you know, when I do come and be a part of our family, it's always that momentum of doing what we need to do to revitalize one another, so that our energies just keep going and keep us through until we see each other again.
Yeah.
So that was always the theme too of family dinner.
Yeah.
It wasn't just come eat and hang out. We actually sit and we had meetings, y'all. We would have meetings, talks, watch stuff together. That was just phenomenal. Remember growing up, we had to watch Chaka Zulu every Thanksgiving weekend, you know, because that's when it was on TV, and we watched it so much. But that's
I do
that
have
we
the DVD. You could just watch
now you have the DVD, right. But, and then you didn't have it. But, so, you know, it's just a lot of different ways that I believe tradition was implanted in us differently than what we probably even knew it was coming, until now, as adults, we're able to see it reflect.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have digested it, and now we're able to kind of like...
And then we always had the open door policy. So there were always people who couldn't go home, didn't have family, and they would always come to our house. And it was like, always, they were, oh my God, this is just so amazing, beautiful, love being here, being a part of it. So that, you know, is always a thing too. Always being a safe space for people.
And don't miss out, we had some that fasted.
Yes.
Like Auntie Kasuma and Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
They fasted because they felt like that's how they wanted to honor it. Yeah.
Right.
And we honored everybody's way of doing it.
Right. You know and you have some family members that don't come and will come through on a Friday. And I think that that's one of the great things too, is that we've actually created our own traditions. Right. And like Aiyisha was saying earlier, like Auntie would come, you know, 2 weeks in advance, you know, stay a week after. So it wasn't necessarily about the day. It was never about the day.
It was about the time.
Right? It was about the time. And so we would make, you know, with me, you know, at the height of it all, when we really made decisions around like, okay, how are we going to do this as a collective? I think I was still in school and away. And I would usually be out of school for like that whole week. And so I would come, you know, like a week before, and it would become like a whole full week or sometimes almost 2 weeks of activity. You know, of bonding with each other and, you know, reintroducing ourselves to each
different
other.
things.
And definitely we had to
even
do,
community service. Like we've done that as a family as well.
And we had to do Black Friday. We
oh my goodness. And that, you know, I fought y'all on that. So this is Aiyisha speaking. You know, I worked in retail for many years in loss prevention. So I used to have to be up and out, you know, on Black Friday, what they call Black Friday.
Right.
And so I was like, no, I don't want to get up. Why we got to get up? But that one year that we got up at 6, Auntie, we went
to the mall.
Oh my goodness. We had such a good time.
And then we don't go because we celebrate Christmas, Xmas, however you want to say it. We go because of the sales, truthfully, because we don't, and when we go because it's bonding. We love to shop.
Yeah, we do.
To shop,
and speed shopping. We were speed shopping.
And we love to shop with each other. And
we would divide and conquer. You go over here. I'm going to go over here.
Auntie would have clippings that she finds. She was like, you know what? Everybody know their job.
I was never really into it.
And then we go find somewhere good to eat.
Then we go eat together.
So that would be good.
So, you know.
So fast forward to now, when we have family dinner, there are more vegan things than anything else.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Shout out to me.
That was Asantewa. If anybody didn't know, that was Asantewa. We know you got to shout her out. No, out to Asantewa.
She shouted herself out, so I'm not going to shout her
out. No, but truthfully, Asantewa was the more vigorous vegan back in the day, who was very adamant about making sure there were vegan options.
Yeah.
And it was important,
and we can cook so many things
to make sure she had
and make it vegan anyway. It's like it didn't take much to make the
really
changes.
And now we do it and be like, okay.
Because we cook like that.
I was going to say, we didn't grow up eating a lot of meat. Like we grew up really eating fish primarily, and then occasionally.
And so when Mommy was still here, she would make gumbo for family dinner. Yeah.
She might make it with seafood or not. You know. But that wasn't a tough transition. But I know, when I first became vegan and I was like really strict about it, and I really was trying not to like do turkey. Like it took me forever to give up chicken. And that would be the time. It would be like, oh, okay, you know, around family dinner or around family. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Like you go around family and you kind of, you know, revert to those habits because that's the culture, you know, within your family. Those are the eating habits. And, and then the restaurants that people choose and all of that stuff. So
they don't have your options.
Right.
So I jokingly said shout out to you, but thank you all too for, you know, helping to cultivate that space where everybody, you know, can elevate, you know, their eating habits.
Well, I like what Aiyisha said too about the fact that we had an open door policy.
Yes.
And so like when people come and they learn, you know, what we're doing, they be like, oh, I'm going to go back and talk to my family about this, you know, because we don't say, no, you got to, you know, from now on, this is how you have to do this holiday, right? But what we do is we just show them that it's capable.
And we also don't tell them what to call it.
Exactly.
You know,
call it whatever you like. Yeah. But it's capable.
You can call me what you want.
It's not impossible to be different, you know? And sometimes it's hard. Like Asantewa said, coming into your family with something new. But one thing I'm grateful for in our family, because we all kind of follow something different at different times, that we all stay open to one another's, you know, ideologies. And we, you know, we might clown each other here and there, but we respect the fact that, hey, this is your path.
Right.
And we're going to respect it. Whether you come today or not.
Right.
We respect
I might badger you a little bit.
You ain't coming, you sure? You ain't. Well,
we're going to miss you.
Can you at least bring the, I'll be like, if I bring it, I'm
the deep fryer.
right.
Can you bring the deep fryer for the mushrooms? For the fried oyster mushrooms, can you bring it, please?
They was like, yo, you have a list.
I'm making that like, thing you like.
I was like, oh, Lord, y'all. I said, I'll drop it off the day before.
Yeah.
I'll see y'all later.
All right, so I'm going to ask now. So can you bring it or no?
Right. Oh, so what you cooking?
I don't have the deep fryer anymore, honestly.
Oh! She threw out the deep fryer. It was like, nah.
Y'all see what's happening, people? Y'all see what's happening?
I see you.
It went through the trash. It got deep fried.
It died.
Out. Yeah.
It got deep fried. You deep fried it.
How many times will you use it? You ain't supposed to use it like that.
What?
You don't be frying food like that.
But no, I have one, though. I do not use it.
Oh, good.
Well, I think I use it for like a good 2 weeks after I got it. I don't use it anymore. It's
no, but I've had it for a few years. So that's, you know, after a while.
The life is over.
It's over. They conk out.
But yeah.
Definitely.
And I like deep fried fish. I'm sorry. That's the only way I like fried fish.
Daughter.
Yeah.
You are. Definitely.
Y'all can keep that fish, that soft battered fish.
One thing that I really appreciate is that before we start, like along the lines of like there being an open door policy, when we do have folks come, right? If there was any confusion about what we were doing, right before we eat, we stand in a circle, and we say our prayer, we talk about things that we gather in a circle on that. No. No. That's another thing. We'll talk about Kwanzaa a little later on, a future episode. But we gather in the circle and we intentionally pray. We say affirmations. We say the things that we're grateful for, and we also say that this is not
your family's Thanksgiving.
Right? Yes. Right. This is not that thing that you are used to. We're doing something else.
Yes.
You know, and we talk about unity, and we talked about
and we talk about our indigenous ancestors and all of the things.
Right. And we allow everybody to talk about what's on their mind at that time. So, like you said, it might not be saying, "Oh, I'm thankful for this," because that's the generic way people do it.
Exactly.
But it may just be what's on your mind about the family that you're in. What are you? And it's our time too to really reconnect with one another.
It's a family meeting.
Yeah, we don't get to see each other. Or at that time when the youth be like, oh, I have an opportunity to say what's on my mind. So they say it, respectfully.
I remember one year we ended up talking about... Because I have this vivid memory. In fact, I put it in a part of one of my research presentations. But I remember one year we ended up talking about police brutality.
Oh, yeah.
And like the food was on the counter and everything. We're just in this deep conversation.
In our circle.
And I remember one of my nephews said, yes, if I ever,
go down by the police's
If I ever go down,
hands.
y'all better...
burn this.
Yeah, I don't even want to say what he said, but I really commended him. I was so proud of him.
He made his feelings
right. He made his
and
statement.
known.
Yeah. And I think about that every
yeah. And this was a time when we were seeing it happening so much on social media in ways that we hadn't. Right. We all knew it was happening.
Yeah.
But to see it right before your eyes and these recordings and stuff. So, that's just another example of how real those conversations get. It's not just this kumbaya, let's hold hands and say what we're thankful for. But no, we're checking in about not only how we feel in the moment, but also what we're looking forward to for the duration of the year or even the year to come.
Yes. And what I really liked about that moment that you spoke on Asantewa is the impactfulness of his words, because we know, most families don't have the opportunity to say, if this happens to me, this is what I want my family to do,
Right.
Because things happen and you're like, we don't know what to do. But he was able to vocalize that. And I think that even gave him the freedom to know they got my back, whether I'm here or not, And so the impact it had on him to be able to say that freely and for us to be able to receive it and love him even more for being able to say it, it's so powerful. And I think that's what...
No, that's because it's always a safe space when we're all together. Yes. And we do ensure that the children know that and feel that they are in a space where they can...
say what it is.
Who they are, share what's going on with them, and we all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Somebody's going through something, it might be, what do you need today, or what can we help you with?
Right.
What's going on? And it's talks.
Yes.
It starts out in groups, and then we break off into the different things, and then we start playing our games, and then it becomes real serious. We're playing the games.
Don't mess with us with the games now. Don't do
that
it.
spades game and that taboo.
Y'all don't want it. We come for your family now. But I just appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that even outside of our family circle, when we engage with others in conversations about this path, this life that we're all living, and the fact that we're living in this time where everybody is focused on this one moment, that we're able to engage in free conversations with others who have like minds and even can enlighten us to new things and broaden our horizons on things, because sometimes we don't. Of course, none of us know everything, but we don't think as far as others may at certain times. Or we may be like, ooh, that might be out of my range. But when you start opening those dialogues, you realize, no, that's right in the range. We just didn't go that far with it, So I definitely think this is a great time to introduce our guest today.
Yeah, so today we have in the studio.
Our engineer, our personal engineer.
Yes. Brother Wanique Kemi Tahuti Shabazz.
Woo, woo, woo.
Hey, Baba Wanique. So Baba Wanique has an extensive bio that I will be just pulling some pieces from, some really important nuggets for those of you who have not heard of him. So Baba Wanique Shabazz is the founder and visionary of Melanin 6 LLC. For over 40 years, he's studied meta and quantum physics, herbology, and nutrition, and how it relates to the total health of the human being, from which he now serves as a lifestyle consultant. Brother Wanique has worked extensively in the field of holistic and spiritual health. His passion and love of these subjects began at the early age of 13, y'all, when he took a strong interest in health and wellness of human beings. So he is certified in the areas of behavioral science, healing science through herbal application, Reiki, massage therapy, transcendental meditation. He's a facilitator, a teacher of universal principles and the metaphysical treatment of all kinds of disorders. that you may find in the human body. He was also a facilitator and instructor at the Jewel University of Immortal Sciences. He has been awarded as Ambassador for Peace by the Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace for his work with the Foundation for the Law of Time 13. And he'll talk a little bit about that, just in case folks are a bit lost.
Right.
He'll talk a little bit about moon calendar, peace change movement. He served on the board of directors of FLT as appointed officer of internal operation, where he now holds the title Director Emeritus and Community Outreach and Public Affairs Liaison. So for over 30 years, Brother Shabazz studied the literary works of the Olmec Maya through various artists. He also is a scholar of melanin-dominant natural time, and so we'll talk about that today as we talk about this season that we're in and how time shifts. We just had the clocks go back a few days ago, so we'll talk about all of those things and what that really means for us. And so again, welcome Baba Wanique Shabazz.
Wow.
Welcome.
Yeah, that's a great welcome. Thank you so much. It's my honor to be here. As usually, I'm a silent witness to the greatness of who we are, particularly through the seeds of revolution. And, of course, obviously knowing well of, Fulani, of course, Baba Bilal, and, of course, now I get to see the seeds that they provided for us. So it's an honor. Thank you for inviting me. And as it may be, everything's organic, so I appreciate, the opportunity.
Yes. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. So talk to us about, like what is time? And, what is the... Let's start there. What is time?
The time as we know it, as we've been taught it, is an illusion. It doesn't really lend to anything but the aspect of what the system in which we live, which is the Gregorian calendar that you mentioned a couple of times, which is the colonial calendar of conquest. If you notice that every holiday is based on the conquest, of the indigenous,
Absolutely.
and therefore they're celebrating the rituals of that and reinforcing it. So time in the natural order of things is galactic and cosmic, and we are actually cosmic people. So we have a thing we call CP time, which is, and it's funny because Aiyisha is laughing, but check out what happens with that. CP time has been alluded to the fact, or even implied, that we don't do anything on time. And it's up against the standards of that which is the time that we've been taught or indoctrinated to believe is time, which is the false narrative of clocks and watches.
Come on now.
And that which is also goes with the calendar or calendrics, that is really truly, again, back to the colonial way of conquering our ancestors, and those, of us who have now are living throughout this false time or the fallaciousness of time. So when we talk about time as in the reality, time is really truly art. So when I listen and watch y'all interact and speak, it's an artistry. There's a beauty that you can't really even sometimes describe, because it's an in the moment thing. The time all we have is now. And now is the best way for us to be able to relate to time. As an acronym or as an anagram, now can only be three things. It could be now, it could be one if you transverse it, and it could be own. So if you're in the now, you own it, and now you have the opportunity to master it based on what we do in the present, which is, again, a present. But it's also the gift, right? Remember, if you have alpha, somebody your present, it's a gift. So being in the present is really understanding where we came, Sankofa, right? And where we are and where we're going. And so this conversation is always intriguing to me, because when we talk about the rituals that y'all spoke of and coming together as family, culturally speaking, which is a strong way of bonding and keeping ourselves focused. But that was also a ritual that was only afforded us because in the cross-Atlantic slave trade, those of us who experienced that, and I'm qualifying that intentionally.
Yes, those of us who experienced that.
Right.
The way that we did that was to find when the master, and I'm using air quotes, slave master, decided that they wanted to celebrate their conquest, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, whatever. It gave us an opportunity to now come together with each other because we got the days off.
Right.
Right. So that's why we don't even call it days anymore, or weekdays. Because, again, the Gregorian calendar and the spell of the words says that we are operating from that phase of unconsciousness. So we're in the weekdays waiting for a weekend. living for the weekend. Remember that? Wednesday is the hump day.
Right.
And then we have these days that we can't even calculate as the way it comes from, but we're following it because we've been indoctrinated. Not because we really truly are adhering to it, but when you're in a system of a cultural dysfunction or distraction, we find ourselves making the adjustment.
Right.
Even when we talk
That's
about
what
the
Princess
food.
Mdaiyah was talking about earlier when she's saying we ingest. I just had a conversation with someone about Mondays. I called her. It was Monday, and I said, "Happy Monday." She was like, "Oh my God, nobody ever talked." I said, "This is still a great day. It's Monday, but happy Monday." Like you got, I said, you have to live in that and don't dread it. Don't look like, "Oh my God, it's Monday. What am I going to do?"
Right.
Like, and then you're setting yourself up.
That's the point. The system is designed to have you in a state of depression.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everything's based on
From Sunday night, actually.
From Sunday night.
Right.
And they have stated statistically that Monday is the highest rate of heart attacks happen on Monday morning. People trying to
Because of the stress.
going to places that they don't love.
Yes.
Operating in these plants
Yes.
that are now taking away their energy and not being on purpose. Not doing what they come to do and naturally do and come what they love to do. Doing what they're compelled or forced to do because of survival. So when we say Monday, obviously the whole calendar is based on planets. It's Monday's Moon Day, Tuesday's also affiliated with another planet, Wednesday and Thursday, all that kind of thing. Friday, Saturday, Saturn, Sunday is the sun, okay. But that's part of the indoctrination from the Vatican, which is who's responsible for this calendar conquest, is the Roman and the Vatican and all those different things that support the maintenance of the system in which we live, which we now call more famously or infamously the Matrix, right?
Yes.
So a lot of what we're doing now is trying to make these adjustments to try to find ourselves interacting with it. And of course, his name escapes me, Barashango. Who did, African people, European holidays, a mental genocide, right?
Yes.
That was clear. That was very key. We find ourselves trying to support ourselves and coming together in the absence of having to go to work or having to go to a job that they provide us. So therefore we say, well, I mean, you off that day, you off that, so we come together and we make it work. And as you were saying earlier, is that we tend to try to now shift it into not being Thanksgiving, but now we give thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And try to see that we're not trying to perpetuate the genocide that comes with these holidays.
Yes.
Right.
Of our indigenous
It's
ancestors.
a major genocide.
And I think you were trying to find the name Reverend Ishaka Musa.
Yeah, Ishaka Musa Barashango. Thank you very much. But that's part of what we're looking at in terms of how we process the way that we interact with each other. That's why it's important. If we're going to do it, we have to make sure we're clear about what we're doing in a conscious way.
Yes.
Because we can say, well, we're just having a good time and we're passing the food. Because, food is the medicine that locks us into the emotional state. That's why, we're addicted to saying we have to have that, gathering because when mama and big mama and auntie and them was to make those the pumpkin pies and sweet potato pie.
Pound cake.
We ain't trying to get around that.
Right.
Because that's also embedded in our ritualistic bonding.
It becomes emotional.
It's an emotional attachment. It's an emotional commitment.
Yes. Oh,
yes.
See, because
because you're committed to it.
Anything in motion.
Yes.
But we also are taught to make sure that we transform the reality of what that is, and don't let it be where we don't take time to say, well, what about the indigenous?
Right.
And the indigenous means what? As the word implies, indigenes of us.
Exactly.
Right. That's our natural as being.
You better
native.
break it down, now, right? In the genes of us. Okay.
I hope y'all listening out there.
That's the way that we naturally incline ourselves.
Yes.
Because we can find ourselves helping them to support and celebrate their ritual of conquest.
Right. Absolutely.
New Year's Day is the same thing.
Yes.
All the fireworks and the the gunpowder and
All
the
that
shooting,
stuff.
all the death and destruction.
Right.
Under the guise of celebrating something celebratory.
That's supposed to be new.
But that's how they conquer.
Yes.
Coming and shooting, raping, pillaging. So that's reminding them and reinvigorating their level of control over the populace, particularly the natives.
Yes.
Right? So we have an obligation to be sure that we take a moment to, if you will, mourn what has happened to us worldwide.
Yes.
From the African diaspora, which we all live in, the African continent as well as what's taking place right here in the Native American, of which we were actually residing before the Ma'afa, before this cross-Atlantic slavery. So there's a lot of conversation about where we all came from one place in Africa, which is a nice conversation to have, but it's not a true. It's a false narrative.
It's not the confirmation.
But it's important.
of the conversation.
But that's intentional.
Yeah.
The intention of that is to make you think that you got to go back somewhere.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that you're not really
and not the fact that everywhere is our home.
Yeah.
The planet is a whole system that we live upon and circumnavigated. So nobody can tell us where to go or how to go.
That's right.
In fact, if we went everywhere, there'd be nobody anywhere.
Right.
For that matter, we're talking about biologically speaking.
Preach.
You know, so the first one to show up anyway was a male dominant woman who gave birth to everything else that we see. That's in the mitochondrial DNA. That's not even something you can argue or debate, you know, because that's part of what we understand when we get into the science of our existence versus our theories or our rhetoric around it. You know, because everything that we do is based on us reclaiming our status,
reclaiming our time,
and how you say that, I reclaim my time, right? And time is of the essence because time is art. Yes. It's not money. But of course, according to this Gregorian calendar and the calendar system,
it is.
Time is money. Everything is, I ain't got enough time. I'm running out of time. Don't waste my time. Please, you know, I don't have the time for that. Everything is based on going in and punching and hitting a clock.
Yeah. That Ziggy Marley song, actually, my husband sings it all the time. Everybody's worried about time.
Right.
Off
And
my
then
mind.
they put you in a time frame of where you're supposed to work from.
Absolutely.
9 to 5.
Oh, yeah.
You don't, that's not always everybody's.
But what is 9 to 5 anyway?
Right. What is 9 to 5?
Exactly.
But it's also about where the energy is most high, where you can be most productive.
Yes.
For their profit.
For their profit.
From the time we wake up.
Right. So time clock, as the word implies, time me to a consciousness block.
Yes. Yeah.
You see, and you're in there struggling. That's why you have to punch in or hit in, because that frustration is at the door. You got to go and punching in, hitting in, because it's really designed to keep you off your balance and your equilibrium, biologically speaking. Now, the real true time, if you want to talk about time, is the 28-day cycle and 13-moon process of the woman's ovulation cycle and menstrual cycle, because all things are clocked into existence through y'all, as y'all well know, because y'all as being mothers, right? So the whole thing is that the key was to take away from us the 13 moons, because the 13 moon represented the feminine principle, that 13th moon. See, the 12 months or months, because it's been aberrated, because it's no longer moon, it's now month. So now it becomes a laceration of what it is actually, because the real truth is that everything is based on cycles. That's why, you know, it should be a time when y'all say, I want my cycle. My cycle is late. You know, that kind of thing. Those type of conversations was based on the biological, if you will, supremacy of the feminine incarnation, right? I'm trying to use these words properly because people have issues in their tissues. So you got to trying to avoid having always trying to explain everything to somebody because they still are trying to figure out what they've been indoctrinated to believe, and they argue. Just say if you argue long and hard enough for your limitation, you get to keep them, right?
But something you brought up about the woman's cycle, you know, if a woman's actually in tune with her cycle, she realizes, and I'm saying this only by my own experience, I realize, let me say it like this, that my cycle actually runs along with the nature of the change in time, you know, quote unquote time, right? I notice when seasons change, my cycle changes.
Absolutely.
My mood changes. Like, you know, and so what you're saying is correct. But a lot of times, because we are so indoctrinated with just moving through things, we don't take a moment to say, okay, wait, this is, it's late. But is it really late?
Right.
Or is it readjusting?
Right.
Or
to things,
things that are naturally happening. Exactly.
You see, the ovulate is really is the truth of things, how things work in cycles. And once you understand your body, you can understand nature, and nature will correlate and correspond. Me and Aiyisha was talking earlier about getting in tune with nature, getting back in tune with nature, and getting back to the earth and the ground.
Because that's the real time.
That's
what time it is.
That's what time it is.
That's what time it is.
Do you know what time it is? Tell me, do you know?
That's the trees. That's the ocean.
No other species that we know of. Operates on anything other
than
nature.
Natural time.
We're the only one that's been, obviously, for good reason, I say good loosely, you know, to keep us off of the alignment of creation.
It's an organized structure.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was going to say, too. It's not even that we're just moving through. We're being ushered through.
Yes.
You know, by entities. We're being ushered through.
Artificial intelligence and machines trying to outdo us because machines don't have to go to the bathroom,
right?
Break,
they don't have to eat.
So therefore, it doesn't.
They don't need to sleep.
It doesn't run on a system that is the natural cosmic system. The cosmic system that we work on is a system that is always reliable. You can always know that the Earth is going to spin. I know some people say that the sun sets or the sun rises, but it doesn't.
Right.
It spins.
No, the Earth is spinning and orbiting at a terrific speed. And therefore, we get a chance to go away from the sun, so we don't oversaturate the Earth with a lot of solar energy. So therefore, it's constantly moving. So in the West Coast, it may be a sort of different time energy relative to the clock, and over here it's different because now we're getting a little break, a little relief, a little shadow to support us, and keeping the Earth in its orbit. So a science.
Well, what you just said, and I know people be like, you always talking about your husband, my husband. Yes,
my man. So thank you to my man. Thank you to.
So, like my husband, we're Hebrew Israelites, of course, right? And when he first came into this way of life years ago, he likes us to help people. He's 39 3/4. So we'll go with when he came in this way of life like 19 years ago. He realized that we are, as the Asantewa said, being shepherded through, because the Jewish calendar, Jews have adapted to this way of life as well, right?
Judaism,
with Judaism. And then they have a calendar of when the holy days are supposed to be that have been set aside already by the Most High to follow by the moon, his cycle. But they've come up with a calendar to associate with the Gregorian calendar. So my husband decided years ago, he started an organization called the Calendar Coalition, where he has gathered people in Israel and different countries to locate the moon in Jerusalem at a certain time. And synchronize. And that's how we follow the holy days, instead of going by a calendar. And then when we looked at why, because there's a book called The Jewish Book of Why, and it tells you why they decided to do the things that they do. And in the book, it tells you, we decided to make this calendar so that we know when it falls, and it never falls on this day or that day to disrupt our daily business activities. They don't want a double Shabbat. We call a double Shabbat is when you have the regular Shabbat day and then a holy day to fall back. They don't want that because then they have to do too much work. They have to prepare because most Shabbats you cannot cook. So you have to be prepared. So they have implemented these structures, but as Brother Wanique, as you just spoke, we have to get out of those boxes. And so when he started this coalition, he had fight. Many people didn't want that. And still to this day, like there are so many different groups that don't follow it and be like, oh, y'all are so crazy following the moon and you'll never know when the day falls. It's not about it's not about us being.
Can you imagine the level of indoctrination where people would argue that, you're following, and usually they're trying to make it appear like, you're now, doing something that is not within the context of being normal. Being natural. And then you become, they start calling you all kind of names that come with that. Particularly when you're making yourself focus on that which is called. But one of the things about what you were saying is that the original calendar system came from the Olmec civilization, the Olmec and the newborn. And a lot of times that's dismissed and suppressed into the Maya, and the Maya is where the illusion. That's why Maya means illusion. So and the confusion that happens within the context of our indigenous way of living on this side of the planet, right? On this particular in this level of terrain that we live on, that was naturally inclined for us to be able to maintain a sense of connection to the cosmic order of things. And therefore, because we've been summarily removed from that, we find ourselves in the rituals of the Gregorian calendar. Pope Gregory, now let's make sure we're clear about when we say Gregorian. Pope Gregory the 13th, I might add. Let that sit for a second. And how they use that as the basis of 13 being what? Bad luck, right? So therefore, you run from 13. We never even question why. And don't let it be Friday the 13th.
Oh,
and then you had Jason, right? And Jason becomes, with the axe or whatever, he was walking around with killing people, and they traumatize you. Right? Look at you, right? But that's part of it. But let's think about what the science of that is. Now remember that the calendar, and I'll say this quickly, I know we don't have much time, but this calendar in itself, in the months that we now are following and living by, and there's no way around it. You have to know how to balance yourself. Because you're in it. You're in the matrix. Yeah. Right? But you don't stay in the matrix. If you know you watch the matrix, you get out when you can. Every chance you get, you need to
find the exit.
Got to find an exit, because if you stay there, you're going to be have to be dodging bullets.
Yes. Yeah.
This is where all the assassinations and shootings and killings of our people come from. The agents, right? Got to avoid the agents. But the calendar itself, in terms of its, they all have definitions for why it is named a certain thing. July and August were the months that were placed in there by Julius and Augustus Caesar.
Yep.
Augustus was the nephew of Julius. He was jealous, so he wanted, 31 days. So he wanted his own month. Before that, the July was called Quintilius. And then August was
that
called...
we know he was black. No, I'm joking.
But that got to do
Quintilius.
And then August was Sextilius, which is 6. Quintilius means 5, which is 6. Then we got September, Septe, 7, right? Then we got what? October, 8, Oct, right? Then we got November, 9, and then we got December. That's a decade. That's 10. But where we get 9, 10, 11, 12?
Right.
You see, but now calendar can't count, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the point is that even
the calendar can't count.
The calendar ain't counting.
Ain't counting, right? But even the name Jason, remember, Jason was supposed to be helping you not understand 13 as being a place where you want to reside.
Right.
It was a scary piece. But Jason is an acronym for July,
August, September, October, November.
Right? So we watching these, these cinemas, and trust your quarter because I let her say it, but but that's what it's based on the month of the indoctrination of controlling the populace and how you interact, which is based on savings and loans. That's why you get daytime saving.
Right. Yes.
You see, because that's the banking hours. Yeah. So the time
and a lot of people don't know the history of daylight savings time.
Absolutely. That's where it comes from.
Did y'all hear that they're trying to make it permanent? Like, I don't... This world is crazy.
Yeah, and that's not even a new thing. That's been on the table for a long time.
They literally are like bringing it up now, like where it's
so that working hours remain the longest. So we have more time in the day to work.
Yes.
And
we have more time in the day to work.
And they have more time to take your money and utilize it for what they do.
But more banking hours. But we talked about
more time
the banks going away.
And the actual brick and mortar.
Yes.
Ways of saving no longer is going to be the kids. They're all digital, and they can just shut it down when they want to and take what your
and I was going to say too, with the setting of the days, right, for holidays and holy days, however you want to say it, it gives jobs the time to calculate their funds
for the end of the year.
So that when you take those days off, they're not working against you or them rather, right?
Absolutely.
So that's why these calendars are set too, because you got to give your job that time. Make sure you got to make sure you give them the time so that they can account for it, not you, because you don't. They're gonna make sure they're not losing. You can lose all day.
I used to work at the post office at one of my lifetimes, and. They used to keep time by 12. It's called 1260. It's a 1260, which is 12 months in the 6. That's what 1260. 1260 is the false time paradigm. Wow. You see, 1320, which is 13 archetypes, or if you look at it from a physical, biological standpoint, is 13 major articulating parts of your body. Y'all can count them later. Don't count them now. You ain't got that much time. And 20 fingers and toes.
Wow.
Right. Okay. So therefore, that is time. We are time moving, and we actually are time in motion because we are the biological replicate or remnant of everything that's happening. So when we talk about melanin dominance and being able to understand that we actually gave all life to everything, that's why you're finding here in the Americas, not just North America, remember the Central and South America, you find a remnants of our existence through the Olmec colossal heads, and they're basalt and they're tons where you can't even move them intentionally. So therefore, when we talk about hold our head, right, or keep your head and watch your head, that's what it is that we had to make sure, because we knew that this time was coming. Sometimes we believed that something happened out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden we were conquered, and all of a sudden we were now used. Even the idea of the slave trade gives the illusion that we had to be dragged from somewhere to come here. No, they enslaved who was already there. See, this is what we say, that the slave trade didn't really come from the fullness of what they call the African. Because those of us who were here already.
It wasn't triangular necessarily.
And see, now that's a whole other discussion, and you get a lot of tug of wars with that. Because people are tied to the narrative. And they're committed to it, and they argue for it. And I'm saying that's not, even our Pan-African scholars, all love and due to them. But because we don't understand the fact that we are are the circumnavigators of this planet. Come on. And everything that happened came because we were there. And we were also doing trade. The Africans came over and they were doing trade with us as Native Americans. The 5 native tribes were black tribes. The Seminoles being one that never surrendered. Never made any treaties. Had to keep it moving. Right. They are the ones that are being tied to the Olmec ancestry or the original Mexicans, as it were. Olmecs, right? You know, the old Mexicans. You know, the real Mexican, the first Mexican, the first one that showed up, you know, in Melanin Dominance. And also, if you look at that, you know, the images I have on my finger, you know that's us.
It's us.
Yes. Yeah, folks can't see this image.
Right.
But,
and we're going to have a bigger conversation. People like this is that we will have a larger conversation.
We don't have time.
Right. We don't have time.
So one quick thing.
Sure.
The bust that's on your finger, on your ring, is the same one that's on the cover of Dr. Evan Van Sertima's book.
They came before
Columbus, the black presence or African presence in ancient America. Right. And I teach from that. So if folks are really wanting to learn more about this, check out that book. There's also lectures that you can find on YouTube, you know, with him talking about it and him visiting Mexico and having these conversations.
And even to the degree that one of the things happened is that the African narrative seems to be always there, but even in the African narratives, not necessarily because we're talking about blood types and talking about understanding what the blood types are, and there are different blood types based on where we were. So, you know, but obviously, you know, it seems like a great narrative when you start talking about Africa and that kind of thing. But we have to be mindful and be careful that we're not negating or denying Africa and the presence of Africa. But remember, we're developing here where you feel more development is here than even in Africa. But why? And then they say we built it. Not as slaves.
Right.
We built it before the
free
slave
people.
trade. Yeah. We do all that.
That's
building.
why they came over here, because it was already built.
It was already.
They didn't have to do any work.
Absolutely. And just think about that though. And we talk about, you know, well, there were Native Americans, or they call them Red Indians, was here. But why they never was enslaved and used to make the land? If anybody knew the land, they would be able to use it and work the land. See, that's part of the narrative that's missing. That it was really us as the black natives that were doing everything. And this is why you can talk about, you know, who your ancestors are. I was asking Aiyisha earlier, you know, did she had any indigenous native ancestors? Y'all do. How many Africans y'all got in your family? Now, this is the serious question. How many Africans you know in your family? Some.
I mean, I do know of 4.
Right. But when you talk about the narrative of our ancestry, you always talk about the native narrative.
Yes.
Right? And not because we're negating, but we have to make sure we put it in perspective. So like I said, it's a larger conversation, you know, and it becomes it's very debatable. A lot of people, you know, who are scholars or scholastically want to talk about something that they read or they wrote, as opposed to what is naturally inclined to make sense, which is practical. The practicality of where we are is what is important. So within the context of that, I'll say this, you know, that when we come together for these rituals of conquest, that is to reinforce the dominance and the conquest of our ancestors, we have to be mindful. That's what it is for the European or Caucasian persuasion. They're reinforcing their level of conquest. That's why they celebrate with all that ruckus and noise and destruction,
all the pomp and all
that, because that's the fear. Because you know how many animals in nature go hiding and run because all that. But we got to mind you, we out there and ahhing about it because it looks nice and because it's colorful. There are places where that's a normal thing, where people were being blown up and
that's say it's a setup.
Speaking of now, but like Palestine and Israel, you know, and of course other places and spaces where they're constantly bombing, and you ain't looking at it saying ooh and ah. You trying to find shelter.
Running for shelter.
You find shelter. But it's all part. But it's all tied into the Gregorian calendar, the conquest, the maintenance of that which is the control. The control is a self-propelled thing that happens, and every time we move, we find ourselves saying Happy New Year when it's not really a New Year.
And it's not a New Year. That's when everything's dead.
That's the most dormant time of life, but that's part of their level of control. Because dormancy is how they live. They live in a dormant way. They constantly they're hiding from the sun because the sun is the enemy to them. That's why we are people of the sun, because we absorb it and it deflects it. So therefore, they're always attempting to find a way to allow themselves to be functional. But but there's something missing in that. In the least of what they represent, based on their biological arrival, and we can get into how they got here and all that, is that we understand that even in the smallest particle of God, you can make it happen. And even though you do it in the worst way, in terms of conquering and killing and pillaging and raping, but the survival to make it happen. So we can never be in a space or a condition that we cannot come back from where we were, right? For where we are now, because they did and showed you with the least that they had nothing and did everything they could to maintain now what they have control of and the so-called white supremacy.
Yes.
So because they had the particle of wanting to live, and how would Malcolm say, by any means necessary. That's where he got it from, because he recognized how they lived.
Yes.
We have yet to live like that.
Yes.
And we have to get back into the order and the science and the harmony of nature, and there's ways to do that through the Olmec calendar and indigenous way.
Yes. And I loved how this how it broke down. And I think the biggest key, what we have to acknowledge, is that so many of us are committed, like you said earlier, committed to this calendar, committed to the emotion of all these things that they have enlightened, that they have brought to us. And what you said about when we get out there and we see all the fireworks and all that, and we're in ooh and on about it, is because they want us to commit to that emotion. So when the bombs come, we thinking it's a firecracker,
right?
But it's really something that's coming to harm us, and we're not in survival mode. We're in complacency mode.
Absolutely.
So, this conversation was so important, and we thank you, Brother Wanique,
yes, Brother Wanique,
for the blessings of the
No,
lessons that
my
came
honor.
today.
My blessings.
Yes.
Just an honor to sit here and gather into that. Asantewa.
And you share so much information. So for folks who want to learn more, I know that you are a part of different movements and formations. How can folks follow you?
Well, Shabazz.com is one of the basic ones. You can find my information about what I do, particularly when we talk about understanding who we are from a cosmic standpoint, which I call Galactic Purpose Signatures, or GPS. You get a chance to really know how we are navigating, how we incarnate on this terrain. So we'll know exactly what our ancestors left us, because and so we have to be able to find ourselves tapped into where we are. Remember we talking about grow where you are? So if you don't know where you are, you can't grow where you are.
Yes.
And so that's one way, right? Of course, social media you find me. Of course, here WRG is where I live for the most part. But but there's also a movement now called IWB.coop, which is the Indigenous Water Bank, which we have our own aquifer and we have and strip our own water. But the main thing about that is that on there you'll see all the truth about Native Americans and different information that comes from with that. Of course, my brother King Esnap, Shaquana Ray's ownership of the cooperative model. Cooperative is the way international co-ops, so we can now be autonomous and control what we own and have a trust to maintain the protection of that. Okay. So therefore, that's one place, IWB.coop, or you can also Wanique.com to find most of the information.
Thank you so much. We have to have you back. Thank you so much.
Man, that was so powerful, so powerful.
Baba Wanique.
Definitely enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, this is a great conversation.
And so many things that we could have hey, pause right there.
Right. It just kept going.
Yeah. Because it flowed, and kind of like what you said, what he said too, is organic. Today was a very organic day.
Yes.
We even talked about that during the week when we was like, what are we going to discuss? And it was like, well, we're just going to go with whatever the Most High, things for us to do. And we all got on black today. It was one of them days everybody came in with the same ideas and
energy.
Yes.
Energy. So just thankful to the Creator for this moment.
Thankful to the Creator. I'm thankful for my sisters.
Yes.
Thankful for Brother Wanique.
Yes.
And for where we come from and who we are and all the things. And wishing all of you and your loved ones continued blessings.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And enjoy, celebrate, do what you do. And I wanted to share just a couple of tips for how you too can decolonize Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So I think Baba Wanique shared a lot, and we all talked about the ways in which we do that in our own family. But just a few things, learn about the land that you occupy, listen and follow and also support indigenous voices. So like Baba Wanique said, learn about who, indigenous folks are.
Yes.
Rewrite your food traditions.
Yes.
Really think consciously about what's on your plate, not just on this particular day, but period. But particularly through this holiday season, because that's when we see, a lot of gluttony. We're just, piling it on, like literally. Look at, indigenous films, learn again more about things. There's a film that I show in one of my classes, and it's called Real Engine, REELINJUN. And even, the books that we talked about earlier. Make sure that you're supporting indigenous businesses. You know, those are some different ways that you can decolonize Thanksgiving. You know, celebrate indigenous creators, and just create your own traditions. Create your own traditions, understanding all the things that we said today. So it's not about just creating a new life for yourself like overnight, but at least having consciousness about the things that you are being subjected to and being taught and indoctrinated within.
Regurgitate.
Yeah. So it's really about just having that consciousness and just taking it, you know, day by day as you unfold and decolonize your own mind and your own family, your own practices.
Yes. One day at a time.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Next time.
Peace.
You have been listening to the Seeds of Revolution, Daughters of the Whirlwind podcast.
Listen to us at blackpowermedia.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Follow us at Seeds of Revolution, that's Seeds with a Z, and Daughters of the Whirlwind on all platforms.
Be blessed.
Look for me in the world.